Hi guys, Zangetsu 134 here. With me as a special guest.
This is AverageJoeSquad here.
And it's Christmas Eve. One of us did work all day, the other stayed home. And we just got out of seeing Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. I meant to do this a long time ago, but just due to complications, I didn't get to it to now. So yeah, like, you know, I was curious about this. I love Spider-Man. You know, I've gone to see all of them. Even if they're the crappy ones, like Amazing Spider-Man 2.
See, that's where you and I differ. I've only ever seen... I saw the first Raimi film, the third Raimi film, and that was it. Those are the only ones I've ever seen in theater. The other ones, because I wasn't a fan when they rebooted, but...
Yeah, well, as much as it shames me to say this, I didn't actually see the first Raimi film in theaters because my mom and I didn't know when it was out. I was actually really upset. Like, I was like in middle school, and I was upset with my mom for a very long time about it.
I don't know why I never went and saw the second Raimi film in theaters. I really don't.
I've seen the second and third. I saw the first in theaters. I didn't want to go see Amazing 2 in theaters. I was like I had heard like reviews from it early on. I was like, oh, this movie's gonna be...
The funny thing is that
bad.
Even though I didn't see 2 in theaters, 2 was actually the first DVD I remember buying, and I had the 2-disc special edition.
Otherwise, I've also watched both cartoons. I've watched the 90s Spider-Man show, The Spectacular Spider-Man with Josh Keaton as Spidey. I haven't seen the Disney one because I've heard it's garbage. I've not seen Ultimate Spider-Man. I haven't seen the other one they did, which I actually haven't heard much other than it was kind of average and meh.
So it's kind of like the one Batman cartoon that we don't talk about because it's not on DC Universe. That's how bad it is.
You mean Batman, Beware the Batman.
Yeah, Beware the Batman.
Which...
I don't even think it's on YouTube in its entirety.
No, because like people hated that show when it came out. I watched like one episode of it when I caught it on TV, and I was like, "This is garbage."
I've seen I think 10 minutes of it, and wasn't impressed.
Like they used the fat Golden Age Alfred in it, and and Katana is his sidekick,
which is weird because you think if anybody was going to use the old Alfred style, it would have been the Bat.
Yeah,
Batman Brave and the Bold.
Batman Brave and the Bold,
what it is.
But no, they use Silver Age modern Alfred, the one that's based on the '60s Batman TV show.
Which is just weird, but
I mean, you know, it's whatever. We're getting off track. So we saw Enter the Spider-Verse, and I have to admit, I knew this movie was getting a lot of praise, and I have to admit, I was impressed with it. I actually kind of went in there mildly trepidatious, just because, you know, I wanted it to be good. And I like the fact that, like, all the characters are in different animation. That was one of the first things that I really rewarded it. Like, Noir he's always in black and white. He never takes his costume off. He's voiced by Nicolas Cage, which makes him amazing he could eat a peach for hours.
I think the main thing was that the hesitation, I think, on your part and my part was that, A, it's Sony, which Sony doesn't have the greatest track record with things. I'm looking at Spider-Man 3's... studio intervention,
or my personal favorite,
Amazing Spider-Man 2,
or my personal favorite, canceling Genndy Tartakovsky's Popeye reboot for the Emoji Movie.
Yeah,
like I don't know if anyone's ever seen that, but if you see like the leaked footage they had of it, it was actually going to be pretty good in my opinion. Has
anybody actually ever watched the Emoji Movie though? Nobody I know has ever seen it. It's like a joke.
But, like, I was surprised. Like, Sony actually has a decent animation studio. Like, I couldn't believe... I was blown away by this movie. My only real complaints is early on, and in some places in the movie, like, the color lighting effects, like, really... I don't think they're seizure-inducing, like some people have warned me. But I will admit, they did hurt my eyes on occasion.
Yeah, I saw the same thing because, I first heard about the film. I hadn't even seen the trailer. Hadn't heard of it, but, because as you know, I role play on Tumblr, and I had a Mary Jane blog. It's inactive right now, but and I remember seeing gift sets of people had made from the trailer, and I was sitting there like, what the hell is this?
I know, like.
Then I had to go look it up, and I'm like, okay, this is either gonna be really good or really bad. It'd be like if they did a Batman version where they had
where it's like
all the different eras.
Like you have like Golden Age Batman, you have like Adam West Batman, which
Batman Beyond, because you need Batman Beyond.
You have Azrael Batman just because.
Yeah, I mean, so I went into the film really skeptical. I mean, you were the one that had mentioned that we should go see it at work one day. We just couldn't get a date set until tonight.
Yeah, but... which we actually, I don't know if we missed anything. I think mostly we just missed the credits.
Yeah, because when we came in, it was right in the opening like
we're
all the presents and stuff. So until one of us gets the Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah, I can't tell how much we missed.
Yeah. Somebody will torrent it eventually. It's gonna pop up.
I also I know of Miles Morales. I've read stories with him. I've not read Spider-Man, but that's just mostly because I have a mad
Spider Totem.
Well, I'm more of a fury with Dan Slott and his writing, but I've heard good things about that Spider-Man story, and after watching this, I'm gonna pick that graphic novel up because
my only experience with Miles prior to this, and I was just hearing, I knew that he was a character. I knew he was pretty popular from what I had seen, and he's in the PS4 game, which I love.
Plus, he was so popular when Marvel killed off the Ultimate Universe. He's the only thing that's ever stuck around, except, him and the Ultimate Son of Logan of Wolverine, but nobody cares about him.
Because even Ultimate Goblin, which I actually see some fanfare for that on Tumblr.
Yeah, people love Ultimate Goblin.
I'm not crazy.
I love the early Ultimate Spider-Man stuff, but their version of the Goblin is not one of those.
Yeah, my thing was as a kid, when I was a kid in the area I lived in, and the time period I did, when this is still early internet. It's not really dial-up, but it's not Wikipedia, Google, everybody having all the comic stuff up and it's all accessible.
Yeah.
So I grew up just having a guidebook from a library that was probably about 250 pages. It's the DK one, which I've been meaning to rebuy.
Oh, I actually own that one. The one written by Tom DeFalco. I actually need to get a newer version because that one actually is before the Straczynski era of Spider-Man. Yeah. Even though it has One More Day in it, I still want to get it because it's a more modern version of that book.
So that was all I had, in addition to my uncle collected comics in the 70s. And he was mainly a Fantastic Four guy, but he had some older ones. He had the one where I think it's the first time that we really figure out who the Green Goblin is when it's Norman. And it's the 2-issue big reveal. There's one with the original Sinister Six. Yeah. So I had some access to original stuff. Yeah. But most of what I had was from the 90s animated show, the one that came immediately after that. Isn't it Spider-Man Unlimited?
Spider-Man? Yeah, Spider-Man Unlimited. Which only lasted 3 episodes in its original time slot. I think they re-released it.
Did it ever get released on DVD?
It did. I don't think it got released on DVD. The problem is a lot of that was owned by Disney because Disney... Okay, way before Marvel actually was owned by Disney, Disney more or less bought the rights to all of Fox Kids' stuff after Fox Kids collapsed.
Plus, this is right around the time Marvel was declaring bankruptcy and selling everything at that point.
And basically, they reran all of these old Spider-Man cartoons. They reran the 60s cartoon. They did episodes of Spider-Man and his amazing friends
with Firestar, who's obviously not a Starfire ripoff.
Well, fun fact, he was supposed to be Johnny Storm, but for a long time, Marvel was afraid that if they put the Human Torch in anything, kids would be like, I want to be like that and light themselves on fire to be the Human Torch.
I know that's why the one Fantastic Four cartoon has that one weird robot.
Yeah, which Herbie's kind of a staple in the comics. It's weird. But more or less, Unlimited actually, they showed all the episodes that didn't get shown on Fox because it did have it had a season. Which is frustrating because it ends on a cliffhanger where Spider-Man could possibly go home.
Yeah.
I almost think that they wanted to only do 2 seasons of that just because they were we know this isn't really the best idea.
They knew people were going to compare it to Batman Beyond at that point because Batman Beyond, as I've told you, Beyond was what I liked most about Batman as a kid. And Spider-Man Unlimited was basically the same. I'm willing
to agree to disagree. My problems with that is mainly the fact that it's not even cool as it's not trying to be Spider-Man 20. It's trying to be Spider 2099, but without being Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, they're trying to keep Peter
where it's Peter Parker, but he's on a parallel Earth, and they use the High Evolutionary, who no one cares about.
I mean, to me, the best thing about Spider-Man Unlimited, besides I'm a sucker for
the storylines.
The costume is
cool.
What the best part about
they have the guy who did the PS1 Spider-Man games, reprising his role as Peter's.
Oh, there goes the lights. All right, let's take this from the top one more time.
Nah, I'll just keep opening the door. So yeah, obviously we're big Spider-Man guys. Is what we're getting at.
I mean, I'm so much of a fan that my favorite thing is the original and by original I mean 90s Clone
Yeah.
Saga, in which I know a lot of people in the fandom have different opinions. Of
It's an interesting piece of history. I will admit,
it does go on. I have my own. I have my own quarrels
that
about
is honestly its biggest problem. Is it?
But other than that, I mean, like I like Ben Reilly, and as we saw in the movie when
like the old. Okay, so let's actually get into the story.
Yeah, let's get into the movie.
So it opens with basically every Spider-Man when they come in like narrates their story, except for Miles. He does his at the end because obviously this is his story.
And they reuse the same line each time. It's what is it like? Let's take
it from the top
one more time.
One more time, and it opens with the Peter Parker of this universe, who's I guess supposed to be the Ultimate Peter. I will admit he has the kind of hair like Ultimate Peter, but he's blonde.
Yeah, and as I told you when we saw it, the blonde to me was like, are they trying to make it so like he's Ben from?
I had to
Clone
imagine
Saga,
he's Ben. I had to imagine they're trying to like hey, it's Ben because he's another Peter Parker.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're reading too much into it, but I mean, with the whole premise of the movie, I really doubt it.
I'm also really happy this movie doesn't have Morlun and the his whole spider totem crap thing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The only thing that this movie didn't have, in my opinion, there goes the lights again. The only thing.
And now there goes the camera. All right.
I can always put my phone flashlight on too, but
yeah.
The only thing this really didn't have that I remember on Tumblr seeing a lot of people upset about was that Mayday. Spider Girl from the other Earth isn't in it. But I feel like if they're gonna do a sequel to this, which they're gonna probably
do Mayday, especially because okay.
I was surprised they had Spider-Ham in it, which was to me was pretty wild.
Yeah, especially because like they even get he was a spider bitten by a radioactive pig, which was hilarious.
People think I'm joking whenever I tell them.
I know, people do that too, and I'm like, what do you want? It's a parody where Spider-Man's a pig.
Yeah, it's literally it's literally a Looney Tunes parody.
For Pete's sakes, they have the Human Torch being a donkey because they wanted to call him the Asinine Torch. That's literally what. It's
a parody. Like, come on, it has to be.
But basically, the Peter in this is kind of a weird, successful, like Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man because like his origin is regular. Thing yeah, they show the dancing. They show the scene in Spider-Man 2 where he's out on a date with Mary Jane.
They show the train sequence from the second one, the upside down kiss from the first one.
You know, and in fact, like both Peters are like that, except one Peter is really successful and the other's the 616 Spider-Man, who's kind of a loser.
Which the second one, which they differentiate them by not only the hair and the success, but
he's also way older.
And he's also Peter B.
Yeah,
Parker.
Peter B. Parker, which
let's just do it this way. This is
easier. You know what? Yeah, we'll just do it. We'll do it. You know, we're the cinema snob, except we're not.
That's better.
Besides, you only want to hear you don't want to really look at us. Very cinema snob midnight screenings.
But yeah, the second one is Peter B. Parker.
Yeah, which I think was like, I know his middle name actually is B, but I thought that was really kind of clever that, he's the other Peter, so he's Peter B. I almost wondered if that Peter we met is Peter A. Parker.
And the first thing I noticed was, like you said, the difference between them. They differentiated with the A1, they mention, that...
They actually show when he was born in this universe. It was 1991 to 2018. They say he's 26, but...
Which, to me, was also maybe a throwback to the Ben thing, because that could easily be...
Actually, I want to say that's when the... No.
Because that's right around... The 90s, early 90s was right around the time. It's probably not 91, but it's probably 90.
But yeah... But, and also it kind of a slight reference to the Ultimate universe where it was in the modern times.
Yeah. Plus, they also differentiate them by like you pointed out was the success thing. Whereas in the one that spoiler alert, because if you're clicking on this, you're probably
and if you've read Spider-Man or the Ultimate Universe, you know what happens to this Peter Parker.
So basically, the first one gets killed, and then this one shows up and. It's like the total opposite, where A is married to Mary Jane, and it's
he's not
successful and everything.
He's also fat because he's let himself go.
Yeah, and I like how they also brought in more of the comic stuff to it. Yeah. Like they mentioned that he and Mary Jane are married.
Speaking of the comic book stuff,
they're divorced.
They let Miles do a lot of thought bubbles and letter
little narrative stuff like why is this happening? Why is this happening?
I actually kind of liked it because they were clearly trying to be like this is like a comic book, and I think this. I think it really works for the animation style. Like,
yeah, I remember you saying that too, like, because we couldn't figure out if it was supposed to be 3D or if it was just they were going for the comic, like the classic comic where the ink fades and stuff. Yeah.
Because like when Miles holds up his phone to use as a flashlight, like it shows like little bubbles, like how like old school comic book inking was. It was done with dot, like where like the paint was done with basically like using like a dot, like a stamp of color.
Yeah, basically. Which is its own art style.
Yeah, which is its own art style, and
back then it was probably the cheapest thing
they could do. You know, like how comic books were done on newsprint, and which is why they don't last.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then it cuts to Miles, who's really the main character of this.
He's different than the PS4 one, which I remember pointing out to you as well.
He's very much the comic book Miles. A lot of times when you see Miles and other stuff, he's not really Miles.
Yeah, this one was I'm sure it's more faithful to the comics,
he's a
given
teenager.
They were already pulling stuff from the comics themselves.
He's a teenager, his dad's a cop, his mom is a nurse, he's part African American, part Mexican American.
Which I don't even think they do in the PS4 game either.
Yeah, I think pretty much every other he's just African American. Like I don't think they ever go into the fact that he's part Spanish. He actually does know a little bit of Spanish. Like he actually like says some Spanish stuff.
Yeah.
And basically it while this is Enter the Spiderverse, it could just be Spider-Man the Miles Morales origin. Which I don't have anything wrong with. I actually think they did a really good job of making you appreciate Miles in this movie.
Yeah, when I realized he was going to be in it, like I said, I'd played the PS4 game, and so I was kind of used to his character a little more than I had been, and I was totally fine with him.
As much as I hate admitting this, when they killed the Ultimate Peter Parker, I was actually really annoyed that they replaced him with Miles. But to be fair, I was like 17 or 18, and okay. I didn't like the fact that he was both black and Mexican. I felt like that was very much we're trying to get more ethnicities move instead of like him being an actual character. It's
like fall into like SJW stuff, or which like a lot of comics do, but I don't think that was the intention.
You know, and I don't or like how they tried to make Iceman gay in the comics, and they did so by having Jean Grey just forcibly admit she read his mind. You know, I had a problem with that because it felt like they were just trying to make another character, this person that we didn't know, into a character. And I'm happy to admit, Miles has earned his right to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, and before someone says anything, I'm not saying that because I always want my characters to be white. All right? Like, one of my favorite characters is War Machine. James Rhodes. I actually like him more than a regular Iron Man at times.
Yeah.
I like Cyborg from like I like my characters to be characters, not this character is black.
Yeah, I mean,
like
you want to like them for the character they are,
no.
not just because they're black or they're gay.
Like I love
or
Batwoman.
Straight, even.
I love Batwoman.
You want to like the characters for who they are.
For example, I love Batwoman. Like when I found out she was gay, I was like, all right, awesome. Yeah. Like I rolled with it because she was an awesome character. She was her own thing. She's not and that was what I realized a long time ago with Miles. Like I grew up and I realized that Miles has earned his place.
Well, basically, it has to happen naturally rather than the people trying to kind of like shoehorn.
Yeah, like Ironheart, like
which I think a lot of people have issue. I think a lot of people have issue with that because it's a common thing now. Like, is it 100% always that case? No. But there are also cases where it's obviously blatant.
But like for every Miles Morales, I can give you 100 Muslim Green Lanterns who prefer using Uzis over their lantern ring because that's the idea that I can't stand him.
I've also heard people claim that like granted, I'm not up to date with Supergirl, like the show. I've been meaning to. I'm like at least 3 seasons behind.
Yeah.
But I have seen people on Tumblr like talking about, possibly it being queer baiting and stuff and all this other stuff. And I mean, that's obviously a real issue, but at the same time, the issue itself has a tendency to be overblown.
Bottom line, before anyone says anything, I wanted to get my feelings out on Miles because I've always felt bad that I kind of wrote Miles off because I was like, oh, it's just they're trying to make the diversity happen instead of just making him a character who has those traits.
Yeah, which I think, to be fair, I mean, I had the same kind of opinion as well when I first learned about it. I'm sure a lot of other people did, because that was, like, the time period that happened, that was going
like
around.
The 2010s, and, like, that was a thing that was going on. Like I point out, the Green Lantern that they made that was Muslim, and, like, but at the same time, Marvel was making Miss Marvel, who was Muslim, but they work and make her a character.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just she's Muslim and that's it.
It can't be a copy.
You can't just represent. You can't just make representation happen. You have to make the character a person. You have to make them have a story.
Yeah.
Which is why I like characters like Batwoman, where, like, that is just a part of her, and sometimes she deals with it, but, like, she is a three-dimensional character. She's not just gay. And that's the thing with Miles, too. He's not just black or Hispanic.
Yeah.
Or,
he's a character at the to put it just bluntly, he's a character rather than an attempt at being a poster child.
Yeah. Like I say, the Burger King Kids Club.
Yeah.
Like, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that, but I really, like I said, there's a lot of characters I like, and it's not just white dudes.
Yeah.
But anyway, now that we're past the PSA portion of our showing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Miles I really like, because it's clear he's not a slacker, but he doesn't want to be in this school because his parents kind of forced him into it.
Yeah.
Because his dad, who's a cop, basically didn't want him to grow up to be, like a thug like him, and apparently his uncle kind of were like. They used to tag stuff. They used to do street graffiti.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of like, there's at least one other comic book instance of that being like a similar thing. I just can't remember. It's like around the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember.
You mean maybe Static Shock?
Yeah, exactly. That's what
I will admit, it does give me it gave me the feel like Static Shock, where, like, the kid's a good kid,
it's
but, like,
probably a common trope.
Yeah,
anything.
But, like, that was a great, like, because Static, he was a good kid, but he sometimes.
Or Terry McGinnis.
Terry McGinnis.
Terry and his dad having the issues that they did.
But him and Miles and his dad clearly, like, they care about each other. It's just his dad constantly forces him to do things he doesn't want to do, and he's a teenager.
Yeah.
So
when you're a teenager,
age, when your parents are like, you don't have a choice in what you're doing. Like, and to be fair, I kind of like Miles because he's like, I don't want to go to this really preppy school because it feels like they just brought me here because, as I was bringing up, just because he won a lottery, but he earned, he clearly is smart.
Yeah.
Like, he constantly references Einstein and stuff. He's not nearly as nerdy as the other Spider characters in this.
I mean, he's obviously not Peter Parker, where Peter Parker is stereotypically
a nerd. But yeah, no, Miles is his own character. Like, you can clearly tell he's actually kind of an artist. He does graffiti, but he does it because he, like, wants to make art.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of how they differentiate Mayday in her series, whereas where Peter is, was like very bookly, a nerd. He was into science.
He didn't really come out of his shell until he got bitten by the spider.
Yeah, whereas with Mayday, they differentiate that by
she's very much
more like Mary Jane.
Yeah, she's very much Mary Jane, but she's also her dad. She doesn't like bully. She has her own sense of humor.
She's not dumb by any stretch of the means.
She's very smart.
Very far from it.
It's just she's more smart in the sense that she's clever instead of, like, super intelligent like her dad. Which I'm not saying that as a bad thing. It's just, like, when people think smart, like, they always think that. But I'm like, I like characters that can. They're not. They can't make a hadron collider out of doll hair and particle board, but they know how to fight.
Kind of like Tim Drake. I mean, Tim Drake obviously isn't as smart as Bruce.
He's not
dumb either.
He's smart
he's
in
able
his
to get
own
himself
ways,
out of situations.
He actually knows how to do computers. He's not Dick Grayson, like, combat. He has his own type of combat, which is why I like Miles. He's very much his own character. And I actually like that later on when he develops his own fighting style, he actually uses more of a parkour style, where he doesn't really rely on web slinging. He uses it more to catch himself or to, like, get distances his normal spider dexterity can't get him.
Yeah.
Or, like, he'll use it to, like, hold himself as he, like, runs across a wall. That was actually it was nice because, like, it really shows how Peter and him are different characters. And so basically he sneaks out of his school one day to visit his Uncle Aaron, who's the Prowler. which we don't find out until later, which I can't believe I didn't realize until after he...
Yeah, same here.
I'm like,
I don't know. I knew something was going to happen. I thought maybe the uncle would just get killed.
His uncle, like, it wouldn't be Spider-Man without a dead uncle. Like, yeah, I don't mean that to be rude, but it's...
That's the trope that comes along with the idea. I mean, it's like Batman having a death in the family, like parents or a kid getting killed.
But basically...
It has to happen for the story to make sense.
And basically, him and his uncle get along because his uncle clearly, like...
is more like him at that age.
But he doesn't want him to he gets along with, like, him and his father clearly are kind of strained with each other. But it's more because the uncle realizes that he won't do the kid a lot of good, but he tries to anyways. When he later on he's like, I wanted to be a good example for you, Miles. And it's interesting just because we never really see, like, how he became the Prowler, which he's scary as the Prowler. He's like the Predator.
The music they do for that, like, works so well. The little surges in it, like, match perfectly.
Yeah,
when, like, he's making moves and
not only that, like,
he
has like the different spectrums, like, imaging in his eyes, like a Predator's mask, where, like,
it's almost like the Batman TAS style eye pieces too.
Well, not only that, like, he's really lanky looking, but he has these massive, like, gauntlets. Like, it makes him actually kind of threatening, especially with the cape and the fact, like, he clearly is covered in gadgets.
Yeah.
He also has his own bike, which I want that toy.
Oh, I
need that toy.
I'm sure they'll make it. You know they will.
My friend, I need that toy. But yeah, and so basically he shows Miles a place to do some tagging in the subway, because he likes to tag stuff. Like, he'll make, like, stickers with his... And, like, his dad's like, you're gonna take those all off.
Yeah, like, you know, obviously his dad's kind of trying to steer him away from, like, being like that, being like the uncle. And it's later revealed, you know, that his dad was like his uncle at that age.
But, like, he clearly
became a cop.
He clearly went a different way,
matured and went a different path in life. As stuff happens.
They also like to show Alchemax in the background, which I actually thought was really cool. For those of you who don't know, like, the 2099 universe, Alchemax is basically like this big corporation that kind of runs the entire world. In fact, their logo is actually the Avengers A, which they actually stole from the Avengers because it takes place 100 years after. So they're like, oh, well, we're homaging. And it's kind of funny because it was an Alchemax super spider that bites Miles when they're in the subway. And because in the 2099 universe, they actually had Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man of 2099, trying to recreate Spider-Man so they could make him a corporate spy, like corporate saboteur, because, you know, he could climb walls, you know, he could be very stealthy and he could mess stuff up.
Plus, as Jonathan puts it, the 2099 suit is just utterly terrifying.
Oh yeah, no, like he made that suit for Dia de los Muertos, which, you know, like, I also kind of find it interesting how both him and, like, have Hispanic backgrounds, like Miguel O'Hara, who I think his mother was Spanish. No, his father was Spanish and his mother was Irish. Hence why he's called Miguel O'Hara.
It's been a long time since I read the 2099.
You really should pick that up. In fact, I actually have the graphic novels. It's pretty good for what it is. It's definitely one of the better parts of 2099. Pro tip: don't go looking for Ravager 2099 or the X-Men 2099. Both are garbage.
What I love about the scene where Miles gets bit is that they have such a build up to it, like,
because you know it's gonna happen, so that, like, they like torture the the and it works.
Like, you know, he's on stuff. He's on Miles's shoe.
Like, he almost bites his uncle.
Yeah, finally it happens, you know, and they do the artwork, like, they show the venom going in, and then it's like they play it off as it almost reminds me of Luke in Last Jedi, where after the whole getting blasted, he just comes out and does the little That's really what it reminds me.
Yeah, it was actually really funny because, like, he doesn't get affected by the bite until he goes home, and then he like clearly has pains from his body mutating.
It's kind of opposite of what we see in Amazing Fantasy, where when Peter gets bit, it's kind of, he doesn't feel good right off the bat.
And it's also like unlike the Raimi films where he comes home and, like, the bite clearly almost kills him.
Yeah.
Until if not for the fact that Peter is just able to handle it. Pardon me. And then of course we get that he goes through the changes. He meets Gwen, who we later find out is actually a Gwen from a different universe. It's Spider-Gwen, who he accidentally uses his clinging ability to, like, get stuck to her hair, and they have to, like, shave his hand off, which they clearly wanted to make a Harry Palms joke with that.
Yeah,
like how like in the original James Cameron script they wanted to make.
I appreciate too how they that continues to be a joke throughout.
Oh
the
yeah,
thing,
where he can't unstick.
Yeah, that and not only the hair thing, they bring it back later.
Where he's like,
for the
because he's like, I like your hair cool, and Gwen's like, you're
not allowed to like my haircut
because you're the reason I have my hair like this, which is weird because like that Gwen is like kind of a punk. Like they bring up the fact that she was a drummer and she like.
It kind of reminds me almost of the haircut that Dark Horse recently wrapped up the Buffy their run of it because it's getting moved to another publisher because they're doing the whole reboot thing now, but. For the last season of Buffy, they had her have a very similar haircut to that. Like one side of it was like shaved.
Yeah.
It was like ponytailed and stuff.
Which I don't know. It can work on some characters. I don't think it would work on Buffy.
I thought it looked cool. It was something
that's supposed to be just because Sarah Michelle Gellar is, or not Michelle Gellar. That's the chick from Sex and the City.
No, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Is it Sarah Michelle?
Yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I thought I said
Buffy. Okay. Yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I only know
She's married to Freddie Prinze. So.
She's Daphne from the Scooby-Doo movies. That's sadly where I know her mostly from. Oh, that's so embarrassing to say. Okay, when Buffy was out, I was like I was not a vampire guy. I was the comic book nerd, the anime dork. Like the vampires to me is Hellsing, and even then, but anyway.
Yeah, getting back.
But like basically, like he kind of falls for Gwen, which is a reference to the comics, how like Spider-Gwen and Miles have like a relationship, which is hilarious because like he's a member of the Champions, and like they bring up like the Spider, because technically like she has different names. Like I like the fact that they call her Spider-Woman in this, that not that she's just Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider like she is in that one show where she, Squirrel Girl, and Miss Marvel team up.
Well, and it could also be a reference to there's a couple different Spider-Women.
Yeah,
there's Jessica Drew, a couple other ones.
Well, yeah, I mean most of the 616 Spider-Women suck, but anyways. And so basically he starts freaking out. At one point he ends up like losing most of his clothes and he gets stuck to like walls and stuff.
And he's getting attacked by it has to be pigeons.
Yeah, pigeons.
Pigeons are, because I don't think it's gulls.
It was pigeons. Which was also interesting because like they show him getting to this class. Because one of the running themes to this is that like the teacher clearly knows he's trying to fail out of the school because he doesn't want to be there. Like he hands in a test and he gets 0 out of 100.
Which I even before they showed that that obviously I even mentioned I'm like, dude, like I've had tests like that.
It's multiple choice.
You have to try not to get one single answer right, because even if you just guess, the chances are you're gonna have at least 20
Honestly,
questions
you could at least fail in a way that's much more convincing than just not answering any question right.
Yeah, I mean, like the teacher in that says, you have to know the right answer to not pick the right one.
Yeah, which shows that he is brilliant in his own right. He
doesn't apply himself.
Which I like that, and I think that's one of the reasons why people like Miguel is because he at first didn't want to apply himself, but then he becomes Spider-Man and he realizes I have to better myself because and as we see here, he meets that world Spider-Man, and like both him and Peter have this thing, and it happens throughout wherever another spider person meets each other. I guess their spider senses like adapt to each other so that they don't see each other as a threat. That like their spider senses kind of conjoin.
I think that might be an actual spider thing. I'm not a science guy by any means.
Then it's a thing that does happen in the Spiderverse stuff where like their spider senses go off, but like then they attune to each other where they're like, oh, you're a Spider-Man or a Spider-Girl or a Spider-Pig. We're getting there.
I mean, I think the only time I've never seen them do that or something similar is the Spider-Girls comic that I told you about, where it's Mayday and another one, forgive me, I don't have the comics, I've only seen bits and pieces of them, but basically they meet up with Peter, Spinneret, and
the Renew Your Vows, Annie, her name
and Annie, and MJ.
Are you okay, Annie? Annie, are you okay? I don't know if there's a comic that does that, but they better have.
There probably is.
Like, if you can call MJ Spider-MILF in those comics, you can do an Annie, Are You Okay? Smooth Criminal reference.
But the way they reveal
she is, by the way.
Yeah, they reveal to the funny thing was, and me and you both had that moment where we were amused by it, was the clip where I told you they're talking and Peter's like, he sees Mayday and the other one, and he's like, please tell me it's not clones. Clones never work out well.
Yeah, no, they never do with Spider-Man.
No.
But basically that Spider-Man's like, stay here. I gotta stop the Kingpin,
and then I'll be right back.
And then, because basically we catch up with the Spider-Man of that universe, who's fighting the Green Goblin, who's a mixture of the 616 Goblin, because he's got like pumpkin bombs and the hat, but he's clearly like a giant Hulk monster with wings and a tail.
So it's probably a mesh of the Ultimate and the 616.
He's also got like the lizard's tail though,
which is weird.
But basically Norman's like trying to prevent him. Basically,
and it's obviously Norman, because you even hear
he even calls him like Norman. We can't open a black hole in the middle of Bronx. I like Bronx where it is. Which that Peter is definitely Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And basically he runs into Miles. Their spider senses kind of connect, and he's like,
"You're like me."
Yeah, and Miles like, I don't want to be though. And he's like, I don't think you really got a choice, kid. You kind of just got the powers.
It's like
I'll help you out. Just let me.
Theme of Spider-Man is you don't have
the choice. It's you have this great power, and now you have to learn the responsibility. Which he's like, you just stay here. And Miles, of course, does the sensible thing and just sits it out because he's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately gets that Peter killed. But like, to be fair, and Miles does feel guilt about it, but more in I think a normal person where it's like, I should have done something even though I knew I wasn't ready, because I could have at least got him out of there.
I mean, it's kind of like kind of referencing again, throwing it back to Batman. It's like in the Batman Beyond pilot, where Terry is basically like, I could have done something, even if it would have gotten him killed in the process.
But I didn't. I went out. And basically, Kingpin tries to activate the super It's clearly the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
And
they give it some other weird name
but like, it's the Large Hadron Collider. Basically, he's trying to open a portal into the multiverse. Which, if any of you are Kingpin fans, you know why. He's trying to get his wife and son back, because
when I was a boy.
Basically, he was fighting Spider-Man, and his wife and son see him almost kill Kingpin, which allows Spider-Man to get away. They drive away, and she gets doesn't see what they get hit by a truck.
It reminds me of the Nickelback video Someday. Where that's what happens is the girlfriend that's being chased gets hit by a semi-truck and it kills her.
Yeah, wait. I think you bring up Nickelback for
just because I grew up in an era where
Spider-Man
was acceptable.
I mean, it's kind of fitting, since Chad Kroeger, I think, really got his famousness from the fact that he did Hero.
If you're not playing that song while you're playing the PS4 game with the Raimi suit, are you really alive at this time period?
And I say that a hero can save us. I actually like that song. I don't know why.
Most Nickelback isn't bad.
Most Nickelback isn't bad.
It just gets overplayed.
And it all kind of sounds the same after a while.
Which
Creed's
the same.
They had a very similar sounding songs. But anyway, basically, he Peter almost dies, and he gives Miles basically what they call a goober, which is basically just,
it's an override key. Basically,
it's an override key.
There has to be an override key.
Like even Peter mentions, there's always an override key.
There's plan B or a virus strain. There's always something.
I've done this a lot.
Which is funny, because let's be honest, it's always a thing with anything. It's like, there's always some kind of override switch.
Because, it can't be super hard. It can't be super hard for the protagonist.
It can't be a foolproof plan where, if we were going to be realistic, if you were going to go to the lengths to build something like that underneath Manhattan, why the hell would you put an override switch on it? That was in an area where it's already hard enough to get to.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, the override is, in the Hadron Collider, on the ceiling, so you have to be Spider-Man to get it.
Or Doc
actually, to be fair,
but
the person who created it probably could reach it, which I kind of want to hold off, because how they did it was incredible, in my opinion. But basically, Fisk, Prowler, and Tombstone. I actually like that he has Tombstone as an enforcer.
Yeah.
Because that's very much like the TV show that I grew up with.
When Norman showed up, we both kind of probably thought it was going to be Norman.
Yeah, and then he dies, and then Norman
He's actually dead, which is weird, because how many times has Norman got killed or died in the comics, and he just shows up?
But basically, Peter is pretty much half dead. He tells Miles to run and to take, which I don't know why they keep calling it a goober. It's clearly just like a memory stick. I don't know why they can't just call it a flash drive.
It's literally just a flash drive.
It's called the override flash drive.
It's a flash drive that probably has an override.
It has a microchip in it with a Spider-Man logo on it. So clearly it was like a chip that's just going to inhibit the activation.
Yeah.
Or like fry the main circuit board.
And knowing Peter, he probably found out about this prior, and he cooked something up like he always does.
And they kind of explain how the Spider-Man of this universe did it. He snuck into Alchemax, broke into the main computer, downloaded the relevant data files, and basically made an override. It kind of implies that he made the override using the data. And so like Peter is on his deathbed, and he basically stalls Kingpin so that Miles can get away. And he's like, "Don't you like? I saw into the multiverse." And basically, it's kind of implied that because he like Green Goblin tries to force him into the energy like as a way to kill him, but it turns out like doing so caused the
entire thing to happen in the first place.
Yeah, basically, it causes like a distortion that draws the other Spider-Men of different multiverses into this world. For example, which they get to when Gwen actually introduces herself as Spider-Gwen. She actually got flung like a week earlier. Like she literally time traveled.
Yeah, and she's like, my spider sense told me to go to this school because it just so happens that's the one that Miles is at.
Which is weird because she met him before the bite, and then like later when she does run into like I guess it might kind of imply that she knew he was the Spider-Man of this universe.
That would make sense why she's kind of, you can tell she's like almost stalling, like not telling him her real name. Because it's probably she's like,
she calls herself like Wanda, now. Like she's like Wanda.
I'm from Africa or something like that. And we both were like, if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my God, Tiffany, you can't just ask people why they're white.
I mean, I thought that was what that was a reference to.
I actually wonder if she was naming herself after the Scarlet Witch, Wanda. I almost want her to be like, my name's Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah, if they had done that, I mean, that would have been, to me, that would have been like a cute little tie.
Yeah, which is kind of hilarious, because in this universe, Spider-Man is beloved by everyone except for, like, Miles' dad, because, like, he's a vigilante.
Which, again, like I even mentioned in the movie, it's the opposite of the PS4 verse, where, I mean, his dad doesn't, like, forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. In the game, it's not. He doesn't hate him,
but he doesn't approve of his methods.
Yeah, he's not really a fan either.
Honestly, it's more like year one Jim Gordon, who's like, I can't really approve of what you're doing,
but I recognize you're trying to help.
Yeah, and it's not like you're like killing. You're like a serial killer or something. I just don't like that you're working outside the law.
Yeah,
which and. To quote Batman, if the law worked, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a superhero verse. The law's not ever going to work right.
Like, and to be fair, in the Marvel Universe, they kind of... Man, I really should have got a pop. Oh, a couple of drops left of this Coke. All right. So basically, Miles feels really responsible for his death. He actually goes to the funeral where Aunt May and Mary Jane are like holding a wake,
and like Mary Jane's doing this whole
eulogy where she
the entire time,
and basically she kind of gives like the same like thing like Stan Lee's feelings on the character, that like,
which I'm sure was intentional.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this movie was in production before his death.
Yeah,
but even so. And basically she says, my husband didn't feel he was special because he was Spider-Man. Anyone could be Spider-Man. Anyone could get bit by the spider and put on the mask. What made Peter Spider-Man was because he always did the right thing.
Yeah.
And which really hits you, especially when Miles goes to a store and buys like a Halloween costume, Spider-Man costume because he feels like he needs to be Spider-Man now.
Which is funny because I had one of those
costumes. And he runs into the store,
and the eye cutouts always like were annoying to me.
Oh yeah, especially because like you want it to be like the actual costume.
And I know they make those. That's the thing that got me as a kid. I was like, why don't they just use the same material?
Why don't you just give me a rubber mask?
I know it's possible.
And so he runs into Stan Lee, who runs the shop, and that. I actually, like, him and I were kind of riffing as we were watching it, but like we both kind of stopped when Stan Lee came on the screen. And he more or less, and it's supposed to be like a gag where he's like telling the kid that it never fits when it starts.
But it always fits eventually.
Which is kind of my feelings with legacy characters. At first it doesn't fit. Which I think it really represents why Miles works so well. Yeah,
or even X-23.
Even X-23 or any legacy character. Like, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's going to fit, but eventually it does fit. And they become their own characters. And I think that really... because Stan Lee loves Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man was, like, the character that, like, he always talks about. Like, he loves his other characters, but Spider-Man is the special one.
Yeah.
Which is why, and I know people get mad that Ditko didn't get his, like, Ditko did lay the groundwork for
It's
Peter.
kind of like Batman, you know,
and to be fair,
Kane gets all the glory
and, you know, and to be,
it was more than just him.
But, you know, to be fair, Stan Lee always, like, appreciated the other people. It's just Marvel kind of backed him because he was a showman. He could put on a good show.
And in an industry that was getting as big as comics books, where you had to be able to do that.
Yeah,
it's kind of like being...
And to be fair, a lot of people like to act like Stan backstabbed these people. It wasn't like that. It was a business. Like, crappy stuff happens in business worlds. Like, you can't just blame Stan
the business world's a cutthroat place.
Yeah, and, you know, and to be fair, Stan always does give credit to other people. Like, yeah, he didn't draw those characters, but he was the one who came up with the idea. And yes, other writers definitely shaped Spider-Man. Like, I think Gary Conway is also just as much as responsible for Peter than... It's
like Conan. Conan is obviously a Robert E. Howard creation, but at this point in time, Conan is such an amalgamation of all these other different authors and graphic artists, you know, putting in their work. It's the same with Red Sonja. It's such a mesh of everything now that it's hard
eventually
to really
kind of
tell.
becomes its own. Like, Conan is his own thing, just because of all the different hands that went into the pot. It's no longer one person's thing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's just like we consider Stan the one that kept that made the Marvel universe.
Face of Marvel, basically,
and he's the reason Marvel is the way it is, because he's like, and forgive me for doing the voice, but I wanted to make a world where the little guy could stand up for himself. Maybe one man can make a difference. Like, say what you will of the Raimi Spider-Man 3, that scene where he talks to Peter and really does show why he loves the character and was so proud to see his character actually get the recognition he deserves in cinema.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one man can. Like, that's why he loves Peter so much.
I'm sure that's why Peter, as a character, has really endured over the years, is that it's a relatable story. I mean...
Yeah, he's the little guy who...
Even more so than Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like, I mean, you can obviously relate to Bruce in that, you know, like the book I'm reading that is like basically the history of how they wrote him and how they created him.
Yeah,
and how and that little...
He was basically Zorro meets the Shadow. But...
Yeah, and that little snippet I sent you where it was, you know, Batman saves people because at one point in time, someone couldn't save him.
Yeah. That he doesn't want another 8-year-old boy to become Batman. That he doesn't want someone's parents to get killed by a mugger and all sense leaves their world so that the only thing they can do is dress up like a bat and punch criminals.
Yeah. It's kind of the same with Spider-Man. I mean, obviously, Peter, and this is obviously debatable given some of the stuff, like the scenes in the PS4 game with Scorpion where I told you where you're playing obviously in Peter's mind and there's all that stuff, all that guilt is like coming out during that scene.
Yeah, where he feels like he's a failure and he eventually rises up. Where he eventually rises past the guilt of the screw-ups of his life and realizes whether or not I'm perfect doesn't matter. What matters is I stand up. And one of the things that what makes a Spider-Man is you get knocked down, but you get up again. And you never let him keep you down. Forgive me for going into a song, but it really works for the character. But like... And that was one of the big running things through that you know, Miles needed to learn to, you know, roll with the punches.
He needed that push over the edge that every character does. Like
which even Peter references, like, it's not being Spider-Man isn't the power, it's a leap of faith. It's that I'm going to jump into the fray and believe that I can make a difference. Which actually is really poignant because like Miles tries to train himself to be Spider-Man, which ends up breaking the goober. And he actually tries to, instead of climbing up buildings, he does like the teenager thing and he runs up the flights of stairs and tries to leap off the building, but it's too tall.
So he runs down. He finds another
smaller building, does the whole running up, which I actually really like because I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and I never realized this until the very end, but like that he couldn't make the leap of faith. And he falls and fails.
I kind of like too how, like, at the beginning of the film, they obviously made all the Raimi references. Yeah. You know, they made the upside down kiss and the subway scene and not the train scene.
The train scene
and the dancing, which I
love because Peter's like, we don't talk about
We don't talk about the dancing.
that was a bad time for me.
They set that up so that you knew, okay, they're not afraid to do references, and then they give themselves they give themselves opportunity to do references and points,
and a lot of them are very subtle. Yeah, a lot of them are very subtle. And so basically he runs into Peter, who finds Miles because of their spider senses or something.
And this is Peter B. Parker. This is
and this is where we get his origin, where basically nothing goes right for him. Like him and Mary Jane are not. I don't think they're divorced.
They're divorced.
Oh yeah, they do sign the papers.
Yeah, they get married.
But basically, being Spider-Man,
Aunt May's dead in that reality.
Basically, and the fact that Peter doesn't want to have kids, which in my opinion, I think kind of works for the character more than getting their marriage ruined by a devil.
Well, and
I'm looking at you, Quesada. Quesada, you know what you did. And then he hired Slot to be your assassin.
And it's also I think it's obviously also a reference to obviously if they go with another Spider-Verse movie, and they want to try to bring Mayday, and it has to be yet another one because in that reality he has to be okay with having kids.
And that's kind of like the Peter story arc for this is that he's
nothing is right.
Nothing is right, and he feels like he just wants to give up. And part of it's because he doesn't, like, not only that, like, him and Miles kind of have a bond with each other, and that makes Peter realize, okay, I can have kids, I want to have kids, and I need to make this work with MJ. That's like, because a lot of the times in this, Peter kind of tries to shirk responsibility, and he's kind of a schlub, too, because, like, they go to, like, a burger place, and
doesn't have any money,
so he makes Miles pay for their bill.
He doesn't want to show Miles how to swing at first, so they take a bus.
I mean, to be fair, though, it is out in, like, the Hamptons. Like, it's out in, like, the woods where, like, there's no real good place to swing out there.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from the trees. But, like, to be fair, like, it's proven in the comics, Spider-Man doesn't do very well outside the urban jungle.
Yeah.
Actually...
Even Batman probably doesn't.
Actually, well, to be fair, Batman is prepared for everything. He has bad ATVs, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. Well, the Spider Buggy's in this. Which you and me both
man, I was so happy to see the Spider Buggy.
And the Spider Bike was in it too. I was like,
I know people hate the Spider Buggy mobile, but I love that thing. It's cheesy.
The fact I had a toy of that as a kid is like evidence enough.
Like,
that
who doesn't love that thing?
It's like Speed Buggy, but with a Spider-Man theme.
Well, yeah, he doesn't talk like that. But basically, Peter, like, and I actually kind of love that Peter, like, does try to shirk it, and he's like, what are you doing? And Miles is like, actually, it's a really cool moment with him and Peter, because, like, Peter, like clearly shows how capable he is with his powers. He walks down, he doesn't crawl like you normally see with Peter. He walks down it like
Plus, it also shows how jaded he is at that. Because of everything that's happened. You know, he's basically like, I don't care. You're not helping me. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Phil from Hercules, Philoctetes, where he's clearly a mentor, but he's clearly jaded. Like, yeah, like you said. And like but like at the end of the day, he's still Peter Parker, and he's like, all right, kid, I'll help you. Yeah, like Miles basically guilt trips him into helping him. And like even Peter's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's like,
I'm making you feel guilty. And so Peter just starts losing it.
All right, I'll help you.
Because it's Peter Parker.
Which is hilarious, because like this Spider-Man, like for a good chunk of the early part of this, Peter spends most of it in just whatever clothes he could find. Because his costume does get shredded up a bit due to the dimensional... Which it doesn't happen to any of the other Spider-Men, but I guess just because he's such a failure that even his costume has to rip.
Yeah, I mean, he's wearing sweatpants for
he spends most of it wearing sweatpants.
Weird and funny at the same time.
And it's also hilarious because, like, Miles puts on, like, clearly thinner sneakers so that doesn't inhibit his... Peter doesn't wear any sneakers. Like, it's classic Peter where, like, he doesn't have boots, so he just goes around with his feet. Like, his bare feet.
Yeah.
And so they sneak into Alchemax, which is, of course, ran by the Kingpin.
And it also is revealed that the scientist who created the thing is actually Dr. Ock.
But it's hilarious because she's a woman, which is actually kind of a reference to Carolyn Traynor, the female Doc Ock that replaces Dr. Octopus in the Clone Saga.
Do your friends call you Doc? Do your friends call you Doc Ock? No, my friends call me Liv.
But my enemies call me Doc Ock, and I'm like, you and Peter have tussled before.
Yeah.
Which I actually think furthers your assumption that was clearly kind of supposed to be like the Peter in Miles' universe was clearly supposed to be Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
Because he fought a female Doc Ock.
Like, I'm just
like, I actually didn't notice she was Doc. I didn't know she was Doc Ock until she forced Peter into a chair that like she straps him to. And in the background you can see a mechanical Doc Ock arm, and I'm like, oh.
And my whole thing was, It's a bit weird that if they were gonna go that route and make it Ben Reilly, I wonder if they left it kind of open for interpretation
that this could be a clone,
or if they kind of backed, which I find weird because, as I mentioned, the Clone Saga is such a conflicting thing among fans. Some like it, some don't.
I think even if you don't like it, I know a lot of people, myself included, they're like, well, there's things I like. Like, I like Ben Reilly as a character.
Kane is okay.
Granted,
is a sub.
Granted, I prefer Kane more in the later stuff where they actually made him more of an anti-hero and he tries to actually be a better person than he was in the Clone Saga. But that's discussion for another time.
Yeah. But my whole thing was that if it was Ben, I always felt that okay, there obviously were further references to stuff being in there from the Clone Saga.
And to be fair, they also reveal here, and when Miles meets Peter, that he's not completely the same Spider-Man. He has different powers. For example, he can actually generate electricity from his body. I think it's supposed to be implied that it's sort of like Venom because he can paralyze people with it.
Which would make sense because his costume's primarily black.
Yeah. I do think that they kind of try to do that Miles has sort of a Black Widow motif to him, where he has a Venom strike.
Yeah.
He also can turn himself invisible, which is a thing with spiders. There are spiders that can camouflage themselves. Before anyone's like, well, that doesn't sound like a spider thing to do. But no, they can. Which I actually didn't know he did. So props to this movie for actually teaching me that. That was actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, he can't do it on command, which is a big thing, running thing through that,
it's a fight or flight, basically.
Yeah, and he hasn't clearly, also going into, he hasn't clearly embraced being Spider-Man. To him, it's just, I have a responsibility. I haven't completely given into it. And to be fair, it makes sense. He's the youngest of the group.
He's basically a kid.
Yeah, even Gwen is at least 15 months older than him, which she brings up because he clearly hits on her a lot in this. But oh yeah, his uncle tries to teach him the shoulder, hey, where you try to be cool, and I'm like, I don't, and Miles can't do it anyway.
It's just it's so comical at every time they use it,
especially when he uses it at the end. But and so basically they steal the hard drive, which is hilarious because Miles just grabs all of the computer
monitor, including the power strip, everything.
And Peter's like, rule number 1:
we don't need the monitor.
He just chucks it.
And I even mentioned to him, he didn't even really need the tower. He could have just ripped the hard drive out of it.
Just ripped the hard drive out. I also do love that, Lady Ock has, all these, screen things, and even Miles is like, organize your desktop, lady!
Which is, I've met people like that, and it's just I can't find anything on your damn desktop.
No, and I'm like, how does your computer even run? Because, that clearly is,
it's having 15 Chrome tabs.
Yeah.
How is your computer,
Speaking from experience.
How is your computer even working right now?
Oh, my God, yeah, nothing... See what time it was. But anyway, and so basically they run into the Alchemax lab where all the scientists
everybody carries guns, which is
hilarious because they're chasing him and they're like, he stole a bagel, because Peter wants a bagel really badly in this scene.
Yeah, it's he goes into the whole plan and he's like, okay, after I get the data, I walk into the caf, I get a bagel, and then I walk out.
I'm like, you're just gonna walk in your Spider-Man costume and just take a bagel?
I mean, which is funny because there's obviously been instances in any Spider-Man media where that's been a thing.
Where he just walks into places in his Spider-Man costume, just like
the PS4 game. The two instances stand out to me. One's in the DLC.
Or how you can walk around the Spider-Man costume and be like, hey.
Crap, what's the name of the first DLC? It's the Heist. That's what it is.
Yeah.
In the base game, there's a part where when you fast travel.
Yeah.
It shows him on the subway, full in costume, and he'll be on his phone or talking to people. There's another dude in a Spider-Man costume. He's just sitting there talking to him.
It's
and in the Heist, no, it's not in the Heist, my bad. It's actually in base game again. My apologies, but he goes to a Halloween costume party, and everybody else is Spider-Man, and because it's the new costume with the white spider, everybody's you got the rip-off costume.
Which is hilarious because I remember there's an episode of Spectacular Spider-Man that takes place on Halloween, and he realizes that he needs to blend in, so he just rips his mask off, and everyone's like, wow, especially the girls wow, you look really sexy in that costume, Peter.
Even Mary Jane said
Mary Jane's
look
like Spider-Man.
She's dressed up like a vampire.
Yeah.
He's you fill out that costume well.
I'm like, oh, how are you people so stupid? But and so basically they actually get chased into the woods, and Peter has to teach him how to web sling, which I actually thought was a really neat moment, because, like, Peter actually does try to and, like, they have this really nice bonding moment where, like they swing. Actually, like, there's a point where Peter's like, you know, it's really, like, because Miles like, I want to help you. And Peter's like, wow, I'm not used to actually having people in my occupation actually like me. They usually just try to kill me.
Because, I mean, even Ben doesn't really like him at first in the Clone Saga.
Well, and, like, even, like, the Avengers, when they have him join on, they're like, why are you so annoying? Which I get frustrated
Fantastic
with.
Four. The Fantastic Four obviously don't trust him when they first meet.
The X-Men don't trust him because, like, you're not a mutant like us. You're a mutant that got it from an accident. And I almost want Peter to be like, because that makes us so different. You were born with it. I got it in a freak accident.
And it's even more weird that in the Renew Your Vows thing, they consider sending Annie to
the Xavier
Institute, which is so weird given the history between the X-Men and them at that point.
Especially because I wouldn't send her there because I think the X-Men are all.
Oh, Mary Jane was totally against it in that too. She was no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I'm not sending my daughter to a school where she'd be attacked by anti-mutant
like robots
and
seriously.
crap on a regular basis. She'd be safer with us.
Because the Sentinels are obviously still a thing in that too.
Well, yeah, because because there's always racists who are like mutie, and then they send a Sentinel after them.
Yeah.
But and they actually get cornered by by Lady Octopus, and then Spider-Gwen jumps out of nowhere and helps them get away. Where we get to Gwen's origin, where basically
Gwen was in the building too at that point.
Oh yeah, she was. I forgot that like Miles runs into her, and I'm like. But like they kind of imply that Spider-Gwen is much more capable. For one, she also has more of like a dancer's fighting style.
She's like ballet trained.
Well, yeah, she's got ballet slippers in her costume, which I actually never realized that. I'm like, oh wow, I just realized she wears ballet slippers in her costume, which makes sense to me because like ballet flats are very thin, so that it wouldn't impede her wall climbing abilities. But basically, she implies that like she was fighting Dr. Octopus. An actual male Dr. Octopus?
Yeah, because they show the classic metal arms.
Yeah, they show the classic metal arms. And then she gets sucked into a portal. Only it has a time delay where she was sent back a week before the whole portal incident because Spider-Man was still alive. And she basically gets them away, and she's like, "All right, we gotta work with this." Which they also reveal here that they're on a time clock. That basically, the spider characters that are here can't stay here forever because basically they're decaying because like the multiverse thinks they're a glitch, so they like glitch out like it's almost like a computer glitch, and like if they stay there too long they'll disintegrate.
It's kind of like a virus basicly. The verse treats them like they're a virus.
Yeah, which is also like kind of a big flaw in Kingpin's plan because like if you make even if you get like
the right Vanessa and Richard, it's not.
They're not going to last. Which I think even Doc Ock's kind of like, you'll have many families. Like, yeah, your family will be here for a while, but they'll disintegrate. So we'll just have to keep doing this. Which Kingpin, of course, would be all right with. But I'm like,
because it's Kingpin.
That's a really, really big flaw in your plan there, Kingpin. But you're Wilson Fisk.
I mean, Doc Ock even tries to point that out, and he obviously just doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's like, no, I want to go through this. And so they actually decide that they need to find a way to make a new goober using, which even she calls it a goober. I'm like, okay, so did your Peter call it a goober? Because Spider-Gwen's whole origin is that she got bitten by a spider and her and Peter were friends, but Peter dies at some point and Gwen feels responsible.
It's the same as the regular, for those who don't know, it's the same as the regular thing where Gwen Stacy gets killed. And Peter, you know,
also she saves her dad, which they reference her dad who's a cop.
Yeah. They mention, like, they even show it's obviously the scene, and they even allude to it later when Miles tries to save Gwen from a fall.
Yeah, and
they show the reaching out thing, like, straight out of Amazing 2.
Only Miles does the smart thing and tries to grasp her himself, and uses a web line to slow both his body and hers at the same time.
Instead of, just reaching out, grabbing her, breaking her neck, breaking her back, or in the movie, like giving her a brain damage.
Yeah, giving her so much brain damage, it's probably kind of a mercy that she died instead of just... Like, because she would have either been a vegetable or...
I need to actually... Yeah. I've actually never seen that movie, confession. I've never seen that movie all the way through. And I bought it on Blu-ray
honestly,
recently.
Dude, you're not missing out.
I might have to put myself through it just to see how actually bad it is.
Honestly, dude, you're not missing out. It's...
I have this trend where
No, I know.
I like stuff that people don't like, and I don't know why.
I think you know what. You and I are going to sit down and watch this movie, and then we're going to do a vlog, just so I can be like, let's hear your reaction, Colton.
We just need to do we should just do a retrospective on all.
I actually wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't mind that either.
Like, I would not mind us just binging the Spider-Man films and just being like, all right, so here's Spider-Man Raimi 1, and it's good. Here's Amazing Spider-Man, and it sucks.
Here's Homecoming, and I'm a little indifferent.
So yeah, and basically they go to the Aunt May of this universe, and she even, like, and there's a running gag where everyone's like, wow, you're really fat, which, he's let himself go, I admit, but I don't think he's that fat.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he weighs about as much as I do, and I'm only like 125.
And basically they go to, like, this shed that Peter had, which is, like, this big high-tech spider cave that I don't know any Spider-Man to have, which I like to call the cave of references.
Yeah, they show all these different costumes. Yeah, they show the PS4 one.
Yeah, the PS4 is in there. They show the what if Spider-Man was Doctor Strange costume.
Spider armor's in there. Scarlet Spider armor.
The bulletproof armor is in there. The stealth armor is in there. It is really good.
And I'm sure there's other references in there we just didn't even spot.
And at that point, Aunt May references, oh, by the way, you guys weren't the only Spider-Man that came through, where we get the last 3 Spider-Man, which I will admit it's kind of a rush thing to do, but, like, to be fair, animation usually is only like an hour and a half long, so you kind of have to cut some corners.
They show Spider-Noir, which is voiced by Nick Cage,
who is
amazing in this.
Yeah, hard-neck turtle guy, which he said, like, he fights, like, the Scorpion of this world, and, like, or no, he fights Tombstone, which was awesome, because, like, he throws his fedora into Tombstone's face, and then just punches the crap out of him.
I like how, with Miles, after his uncle, dies, which is maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves, but they, Spider-Noir's like Miles reveals, like, my uncle's the Predator, and Spider-Noir's like, wow, this has turned out to be quite an origin story.
That's quite a hard-boiled story there, kid. Like, it's so weird, because, like, clearly, like, Cage is trying to do, like, an old, like, 1930s gangsta, see?
And it works because it's Nick Cage.
Yeah, and then, of course, we get Spider-Ham, who is not a pig bitten by a radioactive spider, but rather a spider bitten by a radioactive pig.
And we have the Japanese ones, which I wasn't even aware of.
Her name's Penny Parker. No, I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just saying her name's Penny Parker, and I think she's from one of the manga-verse stories, where she has, like, a psychic link with a spider that runs the giant robot.
Like I said,
I honestly never heard of her. Yeah, same. I never heard of her until this.
And I consider myself pretty well-versed on a lot of, like different multiverse stuff.
I almost wonder if she was made purely for Spider-Verse, because I've never heard of her until, like, this movie. I'm not saying, like, this movie. I'm saying the Spider-Verse event that this movie is a reference to, and is a much better movie than the book. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And basically, she helps them make a new goober. But it's really weird, because, like, she's actually, and I'm sorry to say this, she's more bizarre to me in this movie than the pig.
Which is weird, because, like, Spider-Ham in and of itself is really strange.
I actually love the fact that, like, because his mask actually is, like, around his face. And it actually has, like, the Spider-Man eyes where the nostrils are, and they blink with his eyes.
Yeah.
Which they actually do, and I'm like, wow, that is some really great really great attention to detail from this animation.
Which there was throughout this whole
thing,
really which I liked. They didn't half-ass it.
And I think these 3 really, because, like, Gwen, Miles, and Peter all kind of have similar art styles. They're just slightly different. Like, Peter has, like, an almost slightly more comic book cartoonish face compared to Miles.
It kind of reminds me a little of the comic book costume from the Spider-Man game, where it's like that. It's obviously, it stands out from the rest of the game because it's a different art style. and Gwen, I don't know, I wouldn't say she has, like, a punk look, but, like, they clearly kind of draw her with less color tone. Like, they make her a lot less bright and colorful. Like, Miles is more like natural lighting color. Peter's is more comic book color. But then you have, like, Penny, who's clearly drawn like an anime character. You have Spectacular Spider-Ham, who is drawn like a Looney Tune. And then you have the Spider-Man Noir, who is literally always black and white, to the point where he can only see in black and white. Yeah, like, he gets a Rubik's Cube, he's like, wait, this is purple? All I'm seeing is gray. Yeah, and that was one thing that...
Did you know I wanted to be Superman? But they wouldn't let me, so I became Spider-Man.
Which I remember that was one thing we both mentioned at the end of we were waiting for the after credits scene. If there was going to be one, was that they didn't try to morph the art styles to be similar. They're all different, but they work with the flow of the movie.
And they don't stick out like you would think they would. They actually work really well with each other.
Like you would think anime style animation wouldn't work, but it does.
Although and so basically they're about like eventually though they all get into basically the same argument, which is we don't think Miles should come along. Like Peter vouches for him, but everyone's like he's not ready. He hasn't really had his leap of faith.
To the point they beat him up. Almost,
they beat him up
to try to get him to stand up, and he can't do it.
He can't do it.
He doesn't have that.
And
drive.
so he just runs, which then reveals to him that the Prowler is his uncle, who then tries to kill him again for the third or fourth time in this movie. And then he accidentally leads Lady Hawk and Scorpion and Tombstone and the Prowler back to his place. And this Scorpion, I don't know what is based on. Like, his legs can, like, split into actual scorpion tendrils.
I didn't recognize
And he's Spanish, and I'm like, I have no idea what you were based on.
Yeah, I didn't
He's, like, just his own thing. And, I mean, granted, he's fine, but, like, I was like, what?
Because the rest of this drawing from a source that obviously someone a little more well-versed probably knows what it is.
Like, I don't even think...
for me, like, I had no clue what it was.
Because that's not the Ultimate Scorpion. The Ultimate Scorpion is a failed clone of Peter Parker.
And it's clearly not a more classic-driven one.
Yeah, no, I don't know what the Scorpion is based on, which is so weird because everything else, they draw from the comics, so I don't... I mean, if someone in the comments would tell me in this, or on my Facebook pages that I put this on...
let us know, what is this from?
But basically they fight, and Peter's like, you need to get out of here, kid, because, like... And so, Prowler eventually catches Miles, and Miles basically knows he's going to kill him, so he, in a last-ditch effort, just whips his mask off, like, please do not kill me, Uncle. And and Kingpin is watching this the whole time, he's like, you need to do what I paid you to do, and he refuses to do it, and then the Kingpin shoots him. Which I don't know why that costume ain't bulletproof.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, it's obviously it has to happen for the story to progress, but
because it's a Spider-Man story and you can't not go without a dead uncle.
It's the same with a Batman thing. There has to be dead parents.
And there's no dead parents. It's not a Batman story.
Unless it's Thomas Wayne, but even that dead son. So kind of the same thing.
How morbid is it in comic books that we like? It's not a comic book story unless a parent dies or some sort of authority.
It's the nature of it. I mean, Robin, Dick Grayson's Robin. Parents. It's the same thing. Parents are dead.
Yeah.
It's I'm trying to think of any other instance where it's like that.
But
Mayday Parker.
Yeah, like
in the more recent ones, Peter gets murdered
by a really crappy character. But yeah,
it happens. I mean. Harry Osborn. Dad gets tricked.
His mom's dead, and his dad is a psychopath.
Yeah. Who he thinks on and off Peter murders.
Yeah.
So.
And so basically, so Miles gets his uncle away, and they have their moment where his uncle's like, you're better. Like, the reason your dad pushes you so hard, and why I tried to be such a good role model for you, and try to keep you out of this, is because you're the best of us, kid. You're the best parts of both me and your uncle, or your father. So you can't let this get you down. And then his dad shows up and thinks he killed his uncle, but that doesn't go very far. I was like, oh come on.
I was waiting. I'm sure there's probably a deleted scene.
Well, no, and later on in the movie, his uncle's like, I thought I knew, or his dad's like, I thought I knew who killed your uncle, but I'm not so sure now. Like that clearly, he realizes that this Spider-Man isn't a killer. Because he puts an APB out on Miles, and Miles eventually runs off to his school, and he hides in his apartment, and he throws stuff around. And and I like this because all the Spider-Men, they all have tragedy in their background. Even the noir Spider-Man's my Uncle Benjamin was killed by a bunch of gangsters, which is true of Spider-Man noir. And what gets me is they have Spider-Ham be like, that's the hard part of this job, Miles. You can't save everybody.
Which is so weird coming from
Spider-Ham. I even mentioned that to you. I'm like,
it's Spider-Ham. He's supposed to be a comic relief character.
He's a parody character.
He's dropping this heavy-handed feels basically on everybody.
Even in the Spider-Verse story, he's not that peppy of a character or that.
Which, to be fair, what he says is honestly probably
true.
It's the basis for a lot of superhero-related things.
And it's the basis,
Superman especially Batman, Spider-Man.
And
you can't save everybody.
Yeah, it's the basis of Spider-Man. It's I can't save everybody, but I try to do as much as I can with what I have. And so basically, and then of course we get the scene from the trailer where his roommate walks in, and they're all hiding on the wall, and they constantly have to shift left and right. And then, it's clearly supposed to be based on the Ned from Homecoming.
Yeah.
looks up and sees them and then passes out. Especially because Spider-Ham's like, is it weird in this world that there are talking animals?
Because I don't want to freak him out.
Because I want to freak him out. I'm like, I'm pretty sure if I saw a cartoon pig clinging to my wall, even if it didn't talk, I would have that reaction.
Yeah, basically.
Which is funny later because the kid wakes up and then sees that it's like nighttime. He's like, I'm just gonna conk out for the rest of the day.
Dreaming, totally ignoring all the webs.
Yeah, no, he's like, you know what? I've had a hard day. Some weird stuff happened. I'm just gonna take a nap until things make sense. And then later, him and Miles clearly Miles is like, you know my secrets. So like, let's actually bond with each other. Like, let's stop me being like a jerk and not wanting to talk to you.
The most important part after that is, they let Miles know, like, you're not coming. Basically.
And
Peter B. Parker is like, I'm going to stay behind and sacrifice myself
so that everyone else can...
because Miles obviously isn't ready.
And because Peter's like, my life is a mess, so no one's going to miss me if I die. Which, of course, is also important to Peter's arc, because Miles eventually... You can't just let your life get screwed up. You're Peter Parker. You have to go be responsible. You have to take that leap of faith that you can fix things.
It's like, aren't you going to do something? It's like you're Batman.
Yeah.
I was Batman. It's like...
I'm like, Terry, he's 80-something years old.
Yeah, even with the Batman Beyond, there's no
what is he gonna do?
He's gonna walk in there and be able to take even Mr. Fisk. He's not gonna be able to do it.
And so
you have a better chance of calling Nightwing over. And
he webs Miles to his room and webs his mouth shut so that no one can rescue him. Which I'm like, that's kind of rude, Peter.
Yeah, and that's the scene where Miles' dad shows up and he has that moment where he's like, I push you because you're better than us, and I recognize.
And you're right. I should let you have. I just don't want you to screw up, and I shouldn't be that way. It reminds me a lot, and from the first Amazing Spider-Man where Ben can't reach Peter, and he just keeps calling and calling. So eventually he's like, you know what? I can't talk to him, so I'm just going to leave a message. And I know sooner or later he'll listen to it. Where he's like, look, Peter, I'm sorry, but like I'm just so frustrated with you. But it's just because your aunt and I are so worried about you. We don't understand what's going on, but like, you're a good kid, Peter, and I know you'll come out of this. Just please come home. We'll sit down and we'll talk. I'm frustrated and angry, but I realize that's not going to work. So I'm going to talk. I just want to talk to you, and I want to know what's going on. It's not like how it is there. It's his dad, like he wants to tell his son that the uncle who is like, he loves almost more than like him. He's like, something happened. It's like Miles, I get it. You don't want to talk to me, and I'm sorry I push you so hard, but it's only because I know how much of a good kid you are and how much. So just when you get a chance, just please talk to me. And to be fair, I feel so bad for Miles, because like Miles is like, it's not even his fault. Like, he doesn't want to talk to his dad. It's more like, I can't talk to you right now because I'm literally stuck to a chair. Yeah. But that eventually gives Miles the leap of faith to realize, I have to go help them, because I can't just wait around for my universe to get saved. And that allows him to activate his camouflage and his venom touch at will. And so he goes over to Aunt May, who teaches him
like, what took you so long? It's kind of like the end of the Spider-Man PS4 game where Peter's like you're gonna be fine, and she's like, I want to see my nephew. I've known for a while.
But like, it's great because like she like kind of teaches him more than Peter actually did.
Yeah.
And so he has his moment where he's wearing his Spider-Man costume, but he has like his civilian clothes over it. And he finally, like, takes his leap of faith, and he finally learns to be Spider-Man. Meanwhile, the rest of the group have gone to, like, Fisk's Spider-Man Memorial.
Which is just so, obviously,
like, he has all the waiters wearing Spider-Man masks.
Which is how they bust in. And
they just put bow ties over their costumes, which is hilarious for Spider-Gwen. Because, like, she's clearly, like, in, like, a female Spider-Man outfit, but she's got the bow tie.
And Peter runs into MJ, and he's totally like...
He comes apart because he was like, I'm sorry. I was never there for you. I never got you your bread. Because like, she's like, oh, can we get some more bread for table 6?
She thinks he's a waiter.
He's a waiter.
He uses that as a metaphor. Like, I'm sorry, I know you wanted kids, and I never gave them to you.
And I'm like, and I almost wanted Mary Jane to be like, Peter, but she never does that. And I'm like,
Which is a missed opportunity.
No, especially because
has to be a cut scene somewhere
Yeah,
because
like-
I'm not buying they didn't see that.
I almost
that
wanted Mary
opportunity.
Jane to like at the end to be like that Peter didn't get sucked into the portal like he does here. I almost want her to be like, and like he tries to pretend she's like, Peter, you're a terrible liar. And then he takes the mask off. And she's like, wow, you're a lot older than my Peter. And she's like, yeah, I'm a screw up, MJ. And then she'll be like,
You're a little chubbier too.
yeah, but I almost want her to be like, stop. I know my Peter, and yes, he does screw up. But my Peter was a hero in spite of his screw ups. You need to go to your Mary Jane, and you need to tell her that you're sorry, and that you're afraid, and that you need to make this work.
It was such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I know, because I wanted him to talk this Mary Jane so that he could fix
Gwen's
stuff with his
reaction to
Mary
that,
Jane.
where she's just like face
She's like,
bombing
"What
the
are you
whole time, is
doing?"
me because I'm like, this is
Yeah,
such
no.
a good moment you could have
like,
done.
And it's important to that this Spider-Man's character development because this whole movie has kind of shirked responsibility, but he finally decides that he's going to do responsibility, but it's still kind of shirking his responsibility. He's like, I'm just going to die.
I don't really want to face it.
I'm not going to matter, but these other people matter.
I recognize it's a problem, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. He's still running from his problems. And so they sneak into the Hadron, which Fisk decides to do while all these people are on top of the building, and it shakes and stuff from the Hadron Collider activating, and I'm like, you couldn't have picked a better time to do this, dude?
And it's obviously such a trap at that point.
No, and then they all start attacking the rest of the Spider-Men and Spider-Women, which ends with the spider robot getting destroyed. And I'm like, why'd you do that to Penny? She didn't deserve that.
It was like the most emotional scene for you in the end of it.
Yeah, no, especially when the spider crawls out of the robot and is like, we'll just build a new spider robot. And I'm like, oh no, fix the robot now. And I actually like it because Noir Spider-Man's like, oh, it's a tough break, kid. Come on. And he picks her up. And I'm like...
Yeah, and it's kind of like...
Especially because she gets rescued by Spider-Ham dropping an anvil on the Scorpion.
Which is straight out of Looney Tunes.
That anvil shows up again later when they shut the collider down because all this stuff crams into the collider.
And then the
anvil just lands on it and blows it up. And I'm like, where are we? How did we get here, Colton?
Yeah, basically.
Sorry, I used your real name.
No, it's fine. I don't care.
I mean, I've used my real name on here before, but I try not to.
That's all good.
And so basically they all have this big brawl, and then, but they get outnumbered by Lady Hawk, and then Miles shows up using his invisibility, and Peter's like, I taught him that, and Gwen's like, no.
I didn't teach him that, and I know you
didn't. And so they fight, and they eventually defeat all the bad guys, and Miles activates the goober, and he activates it so that it has each Spider-Man's universe, so that once they jump into it, that universe is closed off from them. And it's actually cool because whenever a spider person goes into it, it makes their multiverse have like that animation style. Like with Penny, it becomes like an anime style. With
Spider Noir, it's the black and white noir style.
Yeah, it turns black and white. With Spider-Ham, it does all the cartoon sound effects. He's like, that's all, folks. And Peter's like,
is he legally? Is he allowed to say that legally?
Legally? So I'm like, would you guys stop breaking the fourth wall in this movie? Even Miles does it, and I'm like, why are you all breaking the fourth wall? You're not Deadpool, even though Spider-Man did it before.
Yeah.
Deadpool, but and I actually really like the moment with him and Gwen, where Gwen's like, I'm a year older than you,
which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
Yeah, because clearly she's probably 16 or 17, and he's 14. Well, she's clearly 16, and he's clearly 15. I'm like, it is kind of weird, but
yeah,
it's not really that big of a time gap between the two of them. It's just clearly Gwen has more maturity over him.
Yeah, and the whole time this is happening, I'm looking at you, and I'm like, okay, where's Fisk? Because he's gonna ruin this.
Yeah, I know.
There's gonna be another fight. This is not gonna be this easy.
And Peter, and him and Fisk, Peter and well, actually no, he doesn't show up until after Peter goes away. But Peter doesn't want to go, and so Miles kicks him, and so he holds Peter by his shirt, and Peter grips on. He's like, I'm not ready, and Miles looks at him. He's just like, Peter,
you have to be.
It's a leap of faith. And then Peter's like, yeah, you're right. I gotta be Spider-Man. Thanks, kid. And then he just lets go, as if showing that Peter's Peter, him and Miles didn't have to become friends and stuff, but it's time to let go, and it's time to just fall. Because you're Spider-Man and you'll catch yourself.
And it leads into there's a whole fight scene with Miles and Fisk. And it kind of shows the same issue that you pointed out earlier with Vanessa and Richard, where it shows so many different versions of him, and it all ends the same because he's fighting Miles,
and they all see that he's clearly the Kingpin, and it also shows why the Kingpin is the main bad guy in this movie, because it kind of doesn't have a main bad guy. Like, Kingpin is the main bad guy, but he's very much a behind the scenes bad guy, where like there's all these other supervillains that do his heavy work. It's that he can't let go.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for Fisk in the comic books too. He cannot let go of Vanessa and his son. Which is weird because like his son eventually will become like the Rose, who's like a big gangster, and he hates his dad. And his son is really lame. But
it's like the opposite of Harry, basically.
Yeah, like, and so I mean it works for Kingpin because it's like I'm great at being a mob boss, but I can't be a good husband and father. And so
whereas Harry, I'm a good husband and father, but I'm a crappy Green Goblin.
Not only that, he lets Miles basically get away while he chases after ghosts of his dead family, and it shows that like yeah, like being Spider-Man means you let go of your fears and stuff, and you hold on to your responsibility and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Fisk has no responsibility; he just simply wants his family back, and he clings to the fact that he failed, and he can't let go of his failure. Which I think is really true of Peter, that yes, Peter does have guilt and he does hold on to his problems, but he eventually lets go of the fact that he failed and lets those failures make him a better person.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think makes Spider-Man such a great character, that yes, he fails and he screws up, but he gets better from each failure and screw up.
And it finally leads into the moment where, Miles gets back up after Kingpin
beats the crap out of him. And his dad, who somehow managed to get down to the Hadron Collider and even calls for backup. I'm like, what are you gonna do?
Where are you gonna get back up from?
From the multiverse is collapsing in on themselves?
Yeah, there was no way he was getting back up down there. But I mean, probably just instant.
But it does work because he even realizes that Spider-Man's the only one who can stop this, so he's like, get up, Spider-Man. And that's the final
piece of the puzzle for
Miles. He realizes that his dad pushes him so that he can learn to get himself back up. Why do we fall, Bruce? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. That's like one of the few lines I like in Batman Begins, just because it's one of the reasons why I like Spider-Man as a character, and why I like Batman as a character too, that despite all their faults and flaws,
all those push-ups if he can't lift a steel beam.
But and so basically, which he does the same move he does to kill the Peter in this world. I don't know how Miles is so much better. I think it's also kind of implying that Kingpin was kind of distracted because he saw Vanessa again.
He probably wasn't totally focused on it.
And so Miles eventually picks himself back up, and Fisk is just like, and so he's like, have you heard of the shoulder move? And he's like, the what? And so Miles puts his hand on Kingpin's arm and he goes, hey. And then he shocks him so hard which clearly Kingpin should be dead from that.
Yeah.
He had enough volts to get flown across a large Hadron Collider, which is like this immense tunnel. I couldn't even tell you how big this thing is, but it's huge. And he ends up hitting the override, which short circuits and causes the thing to explode and finally shut off the multiverse conjiggering. And of course it ends where he finally Miles and his dad finally call each other. And his dad's like, I'm proud of you, which is hilarious because then Miles in his costume sneaks down invisibly and hugs his dad. And his dad doesn't really put two and two together that Miles and Spider-Man are the same thing. And Miles even puts on a fake voice, when you're a teenager and you try to fake having a deep voice, thank you, I look forward to working with you. And it was really, really cute.
Finally awake.
We're not turning this into Skyrim. That's the thing with the two of us.
Todd Howard's done it again.
Actually, I wouldn't mind Spiderverse into the Skyrim. That's a movie we need to make.
All these different versions of Skyrim.
Only he's not the Dragonborn. He's the Spiderborn.
That's probably
Spider-Keen.
There's probably a mod. I'm not down. There's probably a Spider-Man mod. There's got to be a Spider-Man mod.
And of course, we get our last. So let's take it from the top. Which even Miles is like, let's take it from the top one more time. And we finally see that Miles is turning himself around. That he's finally decided, you know what? I'm going to put more work into my schoolwork, but I'm also going to be Spider-Man. I do screw up, and it kind of shows him sometimes he'll miss his jump, but he picks himself back up and keeps going. In fact, when he after he saves all of New York, he almost falls off the building. He's like, meant to do that. And then it leads into, there was this
really LSD like.
Yeah, where he's in his
credit
room.
Scene where it's like.
Well, yeah, but even before that, he's in his room and he's listening to his tunes on his Sony product placement headphones. Seriously, I'm like, it's a cartoon.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed that.
I'm like, why are you putting product placement in your
Sony
cartoon?
Product placement.
All of a sudden you see Bubbles in the color of Spider-Gwen's costume, and she's like, hey, Miles, and I'm like, oh, so that they can still see each other, even though I don't know how Gwen got the technology to cross dimensions. But then it ends with this really, like he says, this really
trippy looking.
It even has the 60s Spider-Man thing where he's sitting at the desk with the picture.
It's the meme where he's like, I guess I'll just wait here. It's like
everyone else is. Which
we saw that and we lost it. We're like,
no, I'm
the
like,
theater's almost empty, and I'm sure everybody else in the theater
we were like the oldest. We were the oldest people there, except for like this couple with their kids.
Yeah, and I'm sure the mom and the dad probably didn't care, but we lost it at that. Yeah, I'm sure they thought we were weird because we're laughing at that.
Well, like, and then there's a scene where like all these Spider-Men are in spider buggies and they're on like a tandem bicycle.
It's so it's like what I told him was it's like I took acid and I went into DeviantArt. And
I get why they did that. It's supposed to be like, oh hey, we're this is like a representation of all the Spider-Man multiverses. But I'm like,
it's just so weird looking.
Yeah. And all right, so this is we've talked for like an hour and 29 minutes. Let's probably wrap this up. So in general, I really like this movie and I recommend you guys see it. I think if you really like the character of Miles Morales, I think this is probably the most definitive thing he's done in the media outside of comic books.
Thus far.
I know he's in some other animation stuff and he's in the Spider-Man PS4 game, but I think this here is really, if you like the character or want to know more about him, this is where you start. Yeah. Like, and not only that, if you're a big Spider-Man fan, you'll love all the references. It's really well done animation. The action is really good in places. I do recommend, like, some of the earlier shots do have some really bright animations that flash across the screen. I don't think it's a seizure-inducing thing, but I will admit it does cause some eye strain. I hope if they make a sequel to this, which I'm sure they will, because this movie is...
It's not Electric Polygon Soldier.
Yeah, Electric Soldier Polygon, yeah.
Electric Soldier Polygon. It's not like that.
But I will admit, if you have eye strain issues, I really would recommend watching this in a bright... Like, it didn't give me headaches, but I will admit it hurt my eyes. But otherwise, I recommend this. I think this is probably one of the best Spider-Man films ever made. I think it's up there with the Raimi films. I think it's up there with Homecoming. It's definitely better than Amazing 2.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say much.
Like I told you, I went into it being pretty skeptical because as a Spider-Man fan, I've been let down before.
Yeah, and I could tell a little bit early on, you were like...
Plus it's Sony, and Sony's whole thing, we're going to do a Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man, like the Kraven thing, which you and me have discussed numerous times before.
I don't even care, dude. And I'm sorry, I don't care who anyone says. This is so much better than the Venom movie.
I haven't seen Venom yet, so I
haven't seen it either. Truth be told, I've
heard good things. I've heard bad things.
I've heard it's great if you watched it in 2003.
But overall, I thought it was a good movie. I give it 10 out of 10, which is a rarity for me. I think if we're gonna talk superhero movies, the only other movies I've given that to are Spider-Man 1, Logan, and
I honestly think it's
probably Batman, Dark Knight.
I think this is up there with Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, definitely.
Because for me, like, I know everyone like says what Batman movie, and like I'm that guy that's like Mask of the Phantasm is the best Batman movie ever made.
For me, it's either Phantasm or Return of the Joker. But Return of the Joker, I'm a bit biased towards.
Well, and to be fair though, that's a solid picture. I just think Batman Mask of the Phantasm, just because like not everyone's going to be into the Beyond stuff.
Yeah, it's obviously an acquired taste.
Like, I love the Beyond stuff just because it's a continuation of what I love. I just think in terms of Phantasm, I think it's easier to get into because it's its own thing, but still feels like a comic book.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I love the Batman animated series so much, and this is why I love this, because this. And the sad part is because it's an animated feature, it's not going to probably, unless you're like a big comic book fan, which is a shame because this movie is fantastic. And if Sony did more animated features like this, I would...
It's far better than The Killing Joke.
Oh, it's so much better than The Killing Joke. I actually hope that if these guys can't do a comic book movie, or if they do Spider-Verse 2, if they're not going to make Spider-Verse 2, which why wouldn't you?
Because you can't tell me this is...
They need to go to the DC animator studio and make a movie, because that was...
I mean, let's be honest, a Spider-Gwen movie would probably make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, no, I'd watch a Spider-Gwen movie. But like I said, I think even if you're not a Spider-Man person, I thought this was a really beautifully animated film.
Yeah.
Like I said, it very much feels like it's trying to be a modern comic book movie, like an actual comic book.
It's got the little dot art style that is like so synonymous with comic books.
And I like the fact that everything is I love how Fisk is like a big brick with arms and legs and a bald head. Like they I also like the fact that like Lady Ock, her hair is kind of tendrily, tendril tentacle, but then she like pulls it up like an octopus head. Like it very much is stylized, and I think that's one of the reasons I think I like it so much.
Yeah.
And why I like the Batman animated series. It's its own style while still feeling very much like what it's trying to be.
I also appreciated this film because its references are obviously going to happen in anything, but this one you could tell they took care with it. They didn't try to like just throw it in there for like, here's your reference, here's your token reference to this.
Like as much as I love the MCU, I know more. The MCU is really guilty of doing that on occasion.
Yeah. Like it didn't feel like fan service.
Yeah, no, it just felt natural, and it felt like it was doing so in a way that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up. This is an hour 30. This is gonna take forever on my Wi-Fi. Oh man.
That's why you take it to work and do it on that.
Oh yeah.
Crash
on that
Wi-Fi.
potato of a Wi-Fi we have at work. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it. Obviously, it's Christmas, so I'm probably not gonna get into my Kamen Rider Zeo stuff until probably the end of the week or next week. I'm probably gonna be behind on that. I'm also thinking of doing, since next year Godzilla King of the Monsters comes out, I'm thinking of doing a retrospective on the 97 animated series.
You don't want to do the movie?
What movie? But anyways, guys, that's going to be, I think, for next year. That's something I'm kind of throwing around my head, because a lot of people don't know that cartoon. I think that cartoon is really good. It's made by the same people that did the Men in Black cartoon.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for the fact that Pokemon and Digimon were on, that cartoon would be still on the air, in my opinion. Because it's better than the movie it's based on, in my opinion. Mostly because Godzilla actually acts like Godzilla.
Yeah.
But that's, again, another story for another time. So until then, guys, I'm Zangetsu 134.
I'm Average Joe Squad.
And we will catch you next time. Take care.